Welcome to today's video where we dive into, reflect on, and explore the fascinating world of consumerism. Today, just like most, I woke up and picked up my phone for my daily morning doomless scroll on Instagram Reels, whilst making sure to check my other social media. I then hopped out of bed before brushing my teeth, washing my face, and of course picking an outfit to wear for the day. I opened my jam-packed drawers with the same old clothes I always wear and thought to myself, I really need some new clothes, I always wear these. Nonetheless, I put on the casual outfit, leggings, a plain tee and some jewellery. I went to my kitchen to make an iced coffee and some scrambled eggs on toast whilst I scrolled a bit more on my phone and checked my emails for the day. Soon it was time to get going and beat the morning traffic. I scurried out the door, making sure not to forget my Comfort a While water bottle as well as my sunnies for the drive. I then hopped in my car, put on my newest Spotify playlist with some of my favourite new hits, featuring Olivia Dean of course, and her newest hit, Man I Need. Well, that was a bit embarrassing. Anyways, as I arrived to university, I made sure to open my phone once again and log in my parking on the Solier app before I started my walk to the library. Now you might be thinking, why do I need to hear about the first 2 hours of your day and all the boring little things you did? Well, the reason why is because to most, and to me before actually sitting down to really think about it, I would have thought that these 2 hours were really not spent doing much. Nothing to remember or really take note of, apart from Olivia's Man I Need, of course. Really, however, a lot of things I did within these first 2 hours of my day, and the reason I did them goes far beyond simply just because that's what you do in the morning. What I did was consume. Daily ritual habits, many of which I subconsciously take part in. When people first think of the word consuming, the idea of munching down some food probably first comes to mind. And though I'd probably think the same with my morning iced coffee or eggs after analysing my morning habits, I've soon realised that there were so many other things that I consume without even noticing. Reflecting on this alone made me realise that no matter how much we try to think about consumption and our daily habits, we will never truly realise just how much we consume on a daily basis and the very extent to which our lives are intertwined with consumption. After reading chapter 3 of Solier's book, Food and the Self, I was able to learn that consumerism is no simple thing to understand or comprehend in today's modern world, especially as consumerism is involved in the way we all live and portray ourselves to the world. She says, I believe the method of ethnography offers an effective means to avoid polarised views of consumption as purely positive or negative, as it encourages us to approach consumption as a realm of everyday practice that has to be understood in its own terms. Though consumption is often demonised to be something purely negative, making us feel overwhelmed or useless to the daily habits we partake in, Solier offers a unique point, that consumerism is neither good nor bad. It's just a part of our daily life, and there's no other way around it. She emphasises the importance of understanding it in our own terms, which is what I'm here doing for myself right now. So let's dive in, shall we? Food consumption as a cultural identity. Buying food isn't just practical, it's about maintaining culture, creating belonging, and expressing who we are, as Khorana 2018 expresses in his book, The Taste and Politics of Intercultural Food in Australia. For diasporic communities, grocery stores act like a home, and a sense of self-belonging to the people and culture they identify with. As Khorana says, within this cultural milieu, grocery stores marked as catering to specific ethnic groups are of significance, being almost a public face of the domestic. They invoke both nostalgia for the nation and culture of birth and consciousness of the host culture. When I reflect on my own food shopping habits, I notice a contrast. I tend to shop at mainstream supermarkets like IGA, Woolworths, or Coles, rather than smaller grocery stores or ethnic food centres. This choice reflects my own identity, as someone who has grown up in a culture where these larger supermarkets dominate daily life. For me, they represent familiarity, convenience, and a sense of belonging to the mainstream Australian lifestyle. Unlike diasporic communities who may seek out specific ingredients to sustain cultural traditions, my purchases often prioritise efficiency, accessibility, and the comfort of routine. In this way, my reliance on large supermarkets signals how my identity is tied more closely to a national consumer culture than to a particular ethnic heritage. Despite this, my consumption with mainstream groceries also highlights a kind of disconnection. Unlike some cultural communities, my food choices don't carry the same symbolic ties to heritage or identity. Instead, they reflect a participation in a homogenized mainstream consumer culture where the act of shopping feels less about cultural preservation and more about practicality. However, after doing some of my own research, I came across an intriguing counterpoint made by Honglatter in 2025. He says, instead of expressing our identity through the choice of food we eat, I argue instead that identity choice entails a level of identity commitment, such that when our choice is not available for any reason, we can maintain our identity through alternative choices which can maintain our identity. This challenges the idea that identity is superficial. It suggests that identity can influence how steadfast we are in our consumption choices, even when ideal options aren't available. This idea really resonated with me. Without a strong cultural background, I often eat food simply because they're there and they're convenient. I might walk past a Vietnamese deli at 3 p.m, hungry, and buy a banh mi, not because it's part of my culture or because I want to be seen eating it, but simply because it satisfies the need in the moment. Though I do agree with Khorana's perspective, in that a lot of food we do consume comes back to our cultural norms, customs, and is based on the way we want to be viewed by society, I also think her view is a little bit far-stretched at times, and like Honglatter discusses, sometimes it's simply not that deep. My next area of discussion moves away from our food purchasing habits built on culture and identity and towards the way retail outlets and shops style and position themselves to lure us in as the consumer. Again, something we often don't take notice of. As Neil Wrigley and Michelle Lowe explore in their text, Reading Retail, they show the significant effect that spatial organisation of retail environments has on the consumer. They say, the layout of retail space is deliberately designed to slow customers down, expose them to more merchandise, and encourage impulse purchasing. As someone who works in retail, I can admit that this is definitely the case. Retailers will always be marketing and planning to ensure products have a higher chance of being sold and are always strategizing new ways to maximize profits from the consumer. This includes putting up promotional bulk stacks of an item near a checkout or having clearance signs that are brightly colored. It also involves being trained as the retail worker to make sure customers are always being greeted and feel acknowledged when in the store. I suppose being on the other side of people's consumption is a little ironic, but it has made me more aware of how easily I too fall into these consumption patterns when I'm shopping myself. This also applies to online shopping, where we're constantly being tempted to buy, from TikTok shopping hauls and get ready with me videos to brand ads popping up everywhere. It's almost impossible not to think, maybe I should get this, especially when the convenience of shopping from home removes any barrier to just clicking a buy. Though I must say, and it's just my personal opinion, as a consumer, we might not recognize it in the moment, but deep down, I think we know we're being manipulated to purchase. Just sometimes we don't actually mind. Sometimes the purposeful placement and strategies of items in stores or the social media marketing means, yes, more money for them, but also just convenience and less hassle for us, even if it means we are a few more dollars short. And sometimes we want to spend the money to feel good about ourselves, whether it be to enjoy a leisurely day out, to feel happy and satisfied, or to take away from the other stresses we have going on. Now this takes me to my next point of consumerism and how sometimes we naturally twist the structured norms of shopping consumerism by doing our own social or personal acts. As Stephen Miles explores in his text about consumers in shopping centres, consumers often reappropriate retail spaces in ways that challenge the dominant narratives of consumerism. While shopping centres and department stores are carefully designed to guide behaviour and encourage spending, shoppers can use these specific spaces for socialising, aesthetic enjoyment, or self-expression, effectively asserting their own agency with controlled environments. Bowlby 2000, as cited in Miles 2010, notes that 19th century department stores allowed women to enter a world of leisure and luxury in fantasy, if not in substance, suggesting that consumption can be as much about imagination and identity exploration as material acquisition. In modern context, this might involve teenagers using food courts as social hubs, adults browsing stores for inspiration rather than purchase, or individuals deliberately engaging in ethical or mindful consumption. These practices challenge the assumption that shopping is solely an instrument of corporate control, revealing that consumerism is not purely about passive acquisition, but also about negotiating personal meaning, creativity, and agency within a commercial landscape. By recognizing this, I'm encouraged to think more critically about my own consumption. It is not just what I buy, but how I inhabit, use, and sometimes resist the spaces built to shape our desires. To wrap up, I want to share my thoughts on what consumerism could look like in the future and how we might approach it more mindfully. I strongly align with the perspectives like de Solier and Honglaterum, who normalise consumerism as a part of daily life in our post-industrial world. Often we don't consume just to express our identity or to make deliberate choices. We consume because it's convenient, practical, and it's a part of the way the world lives and breathes today. Though I do think we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves and our habits of consuming, I do think we should take the time to better understand what we consume and why we want to consume it. With the enormous rise of social media and instant access to products, services, and experiences, the speed at which we consume has come at the cost of truly valuing what we have. We've become desensitized to the real worth of things, discarding what we see as old, only to replace it with new items that too will lose their significance. Lubowiecki-Vikuk et al. 2020 helped me realize that consumerism itself shouldn't be demonized, but should be recognized. We should strive to understand our patterns, recognize when we are being influenced by them, and reclaim the control that consumer culture can hold over us. As they note, today, more than ever, we are facing an urgent need for interventions in postmodern lifestyles and consumer behaviour patterns within modern society, appealing for a co-responsible, balanced, and smart way of life. To conclude my discussion, I think consumerism is complex, but reflecting on it, whether it be thinking back to a simple morning scroll on Instagram Reels, an iced coffee and some eggs, or Olivia Dean's Man I Need playing on repeat, it can teach us a lot about ourselves. It reveals the things we assign our time, attention, and value to, and encourage us to approach our choices with awareness and intention. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this chat about consumerism, and I hope it can lead you to think about what you consume and why you consume it. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.